Congressman Steny Hoyer of Maryland, the third longest serving member of the U.S. House and a central figure in Democratic leadership for more than 4 decades, is stepping down and will not be seeking re-election. First elected in 1981, Hoyer rose to serve as House Majority Leader and Minority Whip, helping navigate major legislative battles while representing Maryland's 5th District. Today, he reflects on his long career and what comes next. Congressman Hoyer, thank you so much for joining me today.
Good to be with you. Thank you very much.
I wanted to ask you about your speech because it was so emotional. And in it, you said Congress is no longer living up to the founders' vision. And you've warned that the country could drift toward lawlessness. And I'm curious, if you were talking to our audience, what do you feel is most broken right now?
Well, I think the inability to work together collegially and listen to one another's views is something that was very present when I came here in 1981. And Republicans and Democrats worked together, and we worked together productively. And I think with respect for one another. Now, I think there's still respect for one another in many cases, but we've become so polarized, not only as a Congress, but as a country, that a lot of the legislation is either my way or no way. And I think that's not good for America. It's not the way the institution is supposed to work. And I think it's led to gridlock in many cases. And in the last year, we took off a lot of time and didn't work. And the reason we didn't is because Republicans, and particularly the Speaker of the House, decided, well, if we can't get it done our way, we're not simply going to meet. And we shut down the government for a long period of time. And we shut down government on long term because of health care. And yesterday we passed a health care with 17 Republicans joined with every Democrat in making sure that people could still afford their health care.
Well, I wanted to touch on that.
That could have been done a long time ago.
That's so important you brought that up because, when you talk about bipartisanship, which has really been kind of a cornerstone of your entire career, and we saw that play out with the healthcare subsidies yesterday, you've urged members to, quote, renew their courage. Did some of that play out yesterday, in your opinion?
I think so. Because they were criticized with undermining their leadership. And it wasn't a question of undermining their leadership. It was obviously reflecting their own personal view as to the policies that we ought to adopt. And that ought not to be dictated by the leadership. It ought to be formulated by the collective 435 of us. There are a few less than that number now, but bringing together what we think is best for our districts and for our constituents and reaching a consensus. And that's what's happened yesterday. And that's frankly what ought to happen.
Let's talk about as you leave Congress. Are you confident that the next generation can maybe repair these institutions? Or, do you really worry that the damage may already be too deep?
Let me tell you what I think can repair this institution, the executive office of the president, is the American people deciding they want a government that works with one another, constructively, cooperatively, effectively. And I tell people when they ask me, when are you guys going to get together? When are you going to work together? And I say, as soon as you do. And they look at me quizzically and say, what do you mean as soon as we do? We're not there. I said, yes, you are. You're the voter. In a democracy, it works. And if the voters vote for people who want to come and confront and throw bricks at one another, and take a narrow view of their responsibilities, then you get a Congress that doesn't work very well. On the other hand, if voters elect people who are constructive, who are cooperative, who want to work together, that understand we are a very diverse country. We have diverse views, diverse people, different environments in which people live. And we need to recognize those differences and work together. That's the key. Work together to create consensus. Because when you don't have consensus in a democracy, you have gridlock, or you have confrontation, or you have a great deal of anger, but you don't have productive policies for the American people. So I think it's not just the members of Congress. It's frankly those who elect us, those who give us direction of where they want us to go. And unfortunately, the country's been very divided and polarized, and they've elected a polarized Congress, which doesn't work very well and demonstrably.
I wanted to take you back just a little bit because you were part of major legislative victories over more than 40 years. And, when history looks back, when you look back at what you've been through, I'm curious which accomplishment, stands out to you. Anything that you would share with us?
Well, of course, I was the sponsor of the Americans with Disabilities Act in the House, which President George H.W. Bush signed in 1990. And I think if I catalog the bills that I've personally been involved in and sponsored, that is the major bill. I also sponsored the Help America Vote Act, which was also signed by a Republican, George W. Bush. And we worked together in a bipartisan way. And both of those pieces of legislation, I think, were a great step forward in making America work better for those with disabilities, but who had consequences for those without disabilities. And the Help America Vote Act did, in fact, provide for better technology, better operations of our electoral system. But I also was very involved in the Affordable Care Act, which I think was a very big step forward to make sure that millions and millions of Americans had health insurance that they could rely on. And also in the Congress of 21 and 22, 2021 and 22, I think that was one of the most productive Congresses in which I've served. I had an agenda called Make It in America. And essentially, those bills that we adopted, the rescue plan to bring us out of the doldrums that the COVID-19 had put us into, and then the infrastructure bill, which we needed to invest in to ensure we were competitive around the world, and then the CHIPS and Science Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, all invested in our manufacturing capacity and our competitive capacity and the creation of jobs. So I think those are probably the major points. There have been a lot of others, but those were major points.
I wanted to ask, I think the question has come up. We've seen it in comments from some of our viewers. Candidly, what would you share with our audience about what brought you to the decision to retire?
Well, I'm 86, and so I don't really view that as a premature retirement. I think most Americans would not either. I think I'm frankly still very productive and effective on behalf of my constituents, Maryland, and hopefully the country. But there comes a time when it's time to step down, and I made a conclusion that this is the time. If I ran again, I would be 89 at the end of that term, and I didn't want to risk not being fully able to serve my constituents as vigorously as I have done over some 50, 60 years now. So, and also I got married 2.5 years ago to a wonderful woman,
Lovely.
and I want to have some time to spend with her over the next 10 years or so, or however years the good Lord gives me.
It's time for you to go enjoy newlywed life for sure. I want to ask, before we have to let you go here, when you walk out of the house for the last time, what do you hope that the institution and the people you served, your constituents, remember about how you led?
Well, it's very heartening when you announce your retirement. You haven't died, but people start to say really good things about you. And I think most members, and we've gotten really hundreds of communications, tweets, and telephone calls and newspaper stories. Who I think one of the things that they focused on is my desire to and practice of trying to work with others and bring people together, try to create consensus and work across the aisle, and do so effectively. I think that's the I think the way I'd like to be remembered, and I think it is what I've tried to do during the course of my career. I was president of the Maryland Senate and worked very closely with a minority leader whose name was Jack Cade. He's now passed away, but we worked together on behalf of our state, and not simply on behalf of our parties. And I've tried to do that. And a lot of Republicans, I think, have made the statement that was the case, that I did do that, and that we were able to work together, and that we did so constructively and effectively. So I think I've fought hard for the things I believe in, and very frankly, I think I've spoken up against things that I thought were bad for the country, inconsistent with our values, and I continue to do so.
Congressman Steny Hoyer, thank you so much for the conversation today. And again, congratulations on your incoming retirement.
Simone, thank you very much.